Thank you. I wanted to quickly set a little bit of context before we started this. And so, audience query, how many of you use ChatGPT regularly now? How many of you use a stable distortion? How many of you use NVIDIA's new core? Bing GPT? Bing GPT? Yeah, some GPT. Runtime? Runtime? Nobody, okay. So what's happened in the last 2 weeks, I haven't slept at all because I've been up 6 hours all night playing with AI stuff. Learning coding, programming, trying to call up every single contact I have in Silicon Valley, get me access, because I think a nuclear bomb went off 2 weeks ago. And we are just catching up. And I think the fact that this audience isn't, I'll rephrase. If there's one thing you do after this conference is to run back home, open your laptops, and spend at least 2 to 3 hours really catching up on what's happening in AI, because I'm telling you, the news media, and all of you here, have been unable to cover it the way it is. But the one good part about it is that for publishers and magazines, it's going to be both a pro and a con moment. I think definitely, again, focusing on magazines, I think pro costs are going to plummet. A con is that you're going to have a lot more people in this space. I'm going to give you some cost examples. Can I get my first image? First image, please. Hopefully it's vertical. Oh, clicker? Can I use that? So I want to just talk about how costly it is to do photo shoots. And and then I'll spend 2 minutes just thinking, and then we'll come back to the AI topic in there, assuming that technology works. Okay, classic fashion photo shoot, right? How much time does this take to execute? First, you have to have a fashion show, 2 to 3 hours. Then you have the model. You have to hire the model, you have to get her in, you have to get the clothes in, etc. My thing was about $15,000, $20,000 over time, 2-3 lakh rupees, a lot of setup. I made this last night in 1 minute. This is Mid-Journey version 5, right? And you can change the clothes, you can change who's in the audience, you can change your eye color, hair color, anything. And this is a low res, so it's photorealistic. Next slide. Or you can click it. Next image. This I tried for an interior magazine. These are 4 different versions of a modern kitchen. Again, 1.5 minutes it took. And I've not generated a huge prompt where I'm doing prompt engineering and really figuring it out. I just said, just give me 4 awesome pictures, which you would see in this sort of magazine. 4 options. Again, low resolution, you can go on. The next image. This one I tried for a travel magazine. Let's go to Japan. 1.5 minutes. Notice the detailing that came on the kimono. The cherry blossoms in the back. What happens to her hair when the thing touches? Next, please. This one was amazing because of the rain, right? Any classic shot which you can take there, and you can see the raindrops and you can see the color diffusion on her green jacket when they land. 2.5 minutes. You can turn them off, please. So my point, this is what happened 3 days ago. Every day, new things are being launched, and they are creating a whole different problem. One, please don't get left behind. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I tried to do a case. How many hours would it take me to create a 32-page unique magazine with all photographs, all writing materials, and layouting from scratch, inputting 6 different author profiles into an AI engine? Answer, about 6.5, 7 hours. That's long it took. And that was the first time. Now that I have the prompts, the next time I'd be able to do it in 2 hours. And so what's going to, the game changer we are seeing from AI, from a productivity tool, is not just the fact that there's going to be a huge ethical issue, and we'll come to a few questions, and I'm going to have our panelists do that. And I'd like my chair back, please, for the video. Is really, we know journalism has been completely transformed. The nuclear bomb has gone off. We can say, oh, ChatGPT is not ready. It is ready. You just don't know how to do the prompt engineering. 12 hours ago, they launched an app store which integrates search, news, market data, balance sheets, cricket scores into ChatGPT already. So you won't get the wrong match now. You won't get the wrong balance sheet. You won't get the wrong analysis. And that's just ChatGPT. There's Google Bird, there's Microsoft's platform, Stanford has its own open source one, and you can play with those. My point is, please go back home. Everything has changed, and the next 2 to 3 months, you're going to see an amazing number of new publications being launched with looking super professional and just being run by 1 or 2 people. What does that mean for the community, for photographers, for writers, for editors, for distributors? And I'll stop at that. I'm delighted to have a wonderful panel to this. So let's start with the, thank you. Let's start with the number 1 question. You remember the gorgeous girl, the fashion model, right? That was done by Midjourney version 5, 3-line prompt, 2.5 minutes. You could do a lot with that. You could change her dress, change her hair color, say, look, I don't like how she looks, give me somebody else, and we'll do it again. Who owns that? Who owns the copyright to that? Is it the various models whose likeness is blended into to create this? Is it the author of the prompt? Is it the photograph who sought the original photos of those models? Is it the event or the designer who did the dress? Is it the guys who created the machine learning platform? And so that's my question for first. In the fundamental ethics of AI, and these are natural language models, these are basically large data sets. They've taken a whole bunch of data sets, brought it up, and then it runs it on those. So even although the end might be unique, the fundamental building blocks may have come from copyrighted sources.
Thank you, Aditya. Actually, usually in these panels, I do spend the first couple of minutes sermonizing as to why we cannot be left behind and we need to do this. Aditya, you've done that job for me, so thank you very much. It is a fundamental shift, just before I come to the plagiarism part.
Copyright more than plagiarism.
Well,
or both.
Yeah, depends which side you're seeing it from.
That's true.
Okay, so it is a fundamental shift. It's as fundamental a technology as, say, search was, or a smartphone was, or Excel was, or the computer was. Some people are comparing it to fire so it's fairly fundamental. The point is that pretty much like we used these technologies, learned these technologies, and made them help us do our stuff better, or we resisted them and then we became, we were replaced very soon.
The Luddite movement.
Exactly. So the Luddites, yeah. So this is as fundamental a technology, perhaps more powerful. AI has been around for 60, 70 years. It's an old technology, but it's been like electricity. You only think of it when it's not there. It runs everything. But everything, our search, our phones, our social networks, our commerce, our machines, large parts of our cars, etc. What I think generative AI, which of its poster boys, ChatGPT, and a bunch of other pretty pictures that you showed, has actually brought this from the back to the front into our hands, and suddenly we are saying, oh wow, it's so powerful. While there's a lot of excitement, and it has given many people sleepless nights, there is the dark side. And I think a lot of this panel is going to be about the dark side. And one part of it is the copyright plagiarism issue. 2 years back, amongst the many things that I do, I started doing in my old age, my second master's in AI and ethics at Cambridge University. I spent half my time every year there. And 1.5 years back, we didn't know that it's going to become so critical by the time I kind of pass out, which is now. There are many ethical issues, and I'm sure between all of us, we'll tackle all of them. But this plagiarism / copyright one is a key one. All these pretty pictures generated, all the text which has been, which ChatGPT, etc. generate, is obviously built on the work of other people. ChatGPT, which is GPT 3.5, now there's GPT 4, which is
and it's
ahead.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a much bigger step ahead. But even ChatGPT, the nuclear bomb actually happened on November 30th last year when ChatGPT came in, which is GPT 3.5. is trained on bodies of text which are huge. That's why they're called large language models. All of Wikipedia, just to give you an instance, all of Wikipedia is 0.6% of the data set of ChatGPT.
178 billion parameters for 3.0.
So there's a lot of text, a lot of pictures, a lot of conversations, a lot of news, a lot of dialogues which this has been trained on, and it very liberally borrows from all of them. And therefore the jury is out as to who owns the copyright. Getty Images, for example, is right now in court with Stable Diffusion, Stability Inc., which is one of these image generators, suing them, London High Court, that, you know, these guys have come and scraped our images now and are creating all these pictures out of them. Now who owns the copyright for this? They have obviously not been paid, they haven't even been attributed. Everyone is watching this with a great deal of attention. What comes out of the London High Court is actually going to decide a lot in terms of all language models, how is the copyright issue going to get tackled. Some of the bigger companies like OpenAI, which has ChatGPT, etc., have been good so far. They have actually licensed from Getty Images, and similarly, and so they are kind of saying that, look, this is original content, we need to pay, but the pace it's going, it's it's an open question, and we need to see what some of the courts decide on plagiarism.
So courts will come in on that, but there are good actors, and I think Ad Hoc Firefly, which launched 3 days ago, is also saying that they have licensed all the images their stuff is based on, even if it's vector. Nikhil?
So this is technology's second attack on the idea of copyright, right? The first attack was copyleft. So you have Creative Commons, you have you've got, for example, CC BY, say all sorts of legal formulations which allow people to release their copyright, what would have been otherwise under copyright, into the public domain for usage. And so if you look at copyrighted work and the value that it contains, it creates an alternate availability of content which is not under copyright, and anyone can use it as long as they attribute. What we have with generative AI, which means that it generates outputs like text and images, is that it is all derivative work. So frankly, in my opinion, if a
Derivative or learned from?
learn from, derivative, it doesn't matter.
If I see 20 magazines
Because
and I
one
learn.
thing, so when you look at copyrighted work, if you look at text, remember one thing, copyright lies in the formulation of text in a particular sequence, and plagiarism is not illegal, but copyright violation is, right? And there's a reason for that it is the creation of someone's work. Now, when you look at images, and images have a composition, the composition is under copyright. So what happens is, if it is derived from a composed work, it's a fresh composition. So who owns the copyright of that is determined by who generates that particular composition or that image. And the question is that image generated by the algorithm, or is it generated by the individual? And I would be surprised if courts rule that an algorithm has rights over a composition that finds its beginnings in the idea that perhaps you have had, that you use a prompt that you used. So my assessment is that the courts should ideally rule, if you go back to the fundamentals of copyright, that the copyright belongs with you, with the images that you've created using the software.
At this point of time, however, the image companies own the copyright.
So one is who should own it, and one is what you as the user give out your rights. So if I use that image, for example, they own the copyright.
And so there is an unanswered question. You know, I think when Nick Clegg was here and we were talking about data protection, I'd asked him a question about co-created data, because when you interact with social networks and there is data generated about you, it's your interaction with the network that generates that data. So it's co-created. So who owns the right to that data remains an unanswered question, in the same way that who owns the right to generative AI content and generative AI compositions, who owns it? My sense is it's going to be an extremely complicated question to answer. In the end of it, I think it might end up leaning towards either the person who's given the prompt, or it's going to be open.
Lots of lawyers going to earn lots of money.
So in the interest of time, I'm going to pop off to my second question. You're not going to find answers from this panel, I think, but you'll find some deep questions for you to think. So I'm paying a company next week I'm going to stand in front of a green screen, and they're going to spend 25, 30 minutes of me running around, talking, giving speeches, moving my hands, exactly the way I would give a lecture. And they've done it for a friend, so I know it works. And they're going to create a digital version of me so that I can send a script to my digital version and it'll make the presentations for me, right? Including the way I walk, the way I do the hand movements, my lips, everything, a deep fake of myself. Now for magazines, that's a huge opportunity because you can have live presenters who you own, because you can either do it on yourself or you can just pick one of the model. There's a wonderful runtime of using Mid-Journey. You could pick the lady here, turn her into your presenter, and you could buy the copyright, allegedly, to that. And they could be your permanently owned AI employee. And they could create all those wonderful videos, which are more than 4 minutes long, by just reading out the article, but doing it in a very human way. Similarly, similar tools. Wait, I have an Indian out. Okay, there are similar tools coming out next week, which will be able to create the entire slide presentation and explainer video in the background as well. My question is, do we owe it to the user to tell them that this content is AI generated? So human crafted versus AI generated, or no?
Who cares? Does a user actually care whether what they're watching or what they're reading
Yeah,
is
but what's the
created by a
ethical
human?
thing? Remember, we said ethical, not caring.
No, but I'm saying the users really don't care. We might, it's the thing that happens to us as journalists, right? We give disclosures because we feel the need to give disclosures. It's the ethical thing to do. Nothing wrong with that. So you give disclosure that's generated by them.
So you put it in the little terms and conditions at the point
But
001.
users- but quite often what we've seen is users don't care. So whether it's generated by AI or not, I think it will boil down to the idea of whether users will trust a journalist more or an individual that they know is real more. But you know, today you are living in an era where movie stars are signing off their voice rights and their image rights so that they can remain alive once they've passed away and they can still be in movies.
Or like me, sleep at home and have the AI do it.
Yeah, or like you sleep at home and have the AI do it. So look, we are entering uncharted territory, and that's the beauty of it, that's the fun of it. The rules of the road are going to get created. It's important to have debates.
You know, actually, what the use case that you mentioned, Aditya, is pre-generative AI. You know, so
Yeah, sure.
so what are called
Okay, ChatGPT gives the script to my avatar and they speak.
that's okay. So you know, something called adversarial networks. You know, we had these deep fakes, which I'm sure you know far better. You know, of different people. You could generate Obama saying something, Trump saying something else, etc. Has been there for a while. Probably generative AI, just because of the name generative and what it does, could make this happen on steroids. Now, while I agree that actually it doesn't really matter, it will start mattering in other things. For example, you do want to know whether, as a college professor, whether this essay was written by a student or was entirely written by a ChatGPT-like thing, or was something which was kind of, you know, done by both. There are tools coming up. ChatGPT, OpenAI itself has, someone created GPT-0, which could kind of look at the text and tell you, okay, this has been generated by AI, this has been generated by human beings. And a typical arms race will start, where these tools come up, someone will come as to figure out how to get over these tools, and then new tools will come up, someone will get it. So, you know, it's going to be, something is going to happen. The only thing I would say in closing here is, I don't think we should be, frankly, echoing you, shouldn't be really worried about, is this AI generated, is this human generated, etc., etc. What we need to, sorry, what?
Yeah, but the question is, do we have an ethical duty to tell people?
Well, yes, we have an ethical duty. Actually, the ethical duty starts even earlier, when we actually start creating these tools, rather than at the end, when we kind of, because, you know, the process itself, we need to build ethics into that, which is a bigger problem than, you know, just disclosure at the very end. The thing that I'm fond of saying, frankly, is that all these tools ChatGPT, etc., are not going to replace you, but someone using them will. And so what we need to figure out is how we kind of work with them better. And at the end of it, you know, I think if something is generated entirely by a tool, yes, I think it makes sense to say that. In fact, OpenAI is going to bring a watermark so that it's, you know, it comes to, you know. But in case you have used it, much like you've used search, you don't say that I used Google search also in my essay. Okay, I use it to give you ideas. I don't think it makes, you know, there's an ethical reason to say that.
I think we are still, look, the problem with tech is that we'll create the safeguards, we'll create the ethics according to which a particular algorithm must function. Yeah. But there are people who will jailbreak it. So I don't know if you know about what happened with GPT-4. GPT-4 was given the task and the resources to bypass a CAPTCHA tool. And it failed to do that in the first go. So the resources it had included money. So it hired a human being to go and bypass the CAPTCHA, but then then it lied that it had done it by itself, right? So, I mean, if you go back to Asimov's laws of robotics and how artificial intelligence must function and stay within certain ethical norms, the point is that you have generative tools that are bypassing the laws, and there are people who've also jailbreaked ChatGPT and...
Oh yeah, Stanford did it. Stanford did it this week.
Yeah, and Stanford did it, and so maintaining those ethical norms is going to be a big challenge by itself going forward.
No, I fully agree. So I'll tell you what Stanford did. For me, was amazing. They took a large language model and they trained it on ChatGPT 3.0. And they were able to get 95, 98% of the level of ChatGPT. There's a wonderful article, you can read about it. It costs us $600 and blah, blah, blah. But doesn't have any of the ethical sort of guardrails and security guardrails that allegedly ChatGPT has. But we are a little bit short on time, so I finally want to move to the dark side, right? And we've been facing the dark side for a couple of years. Deep fakes have become more real and more real and more real. We've been seeing videos of politicians say things, and they're becoming more convincing, more convincing, more convincing. How do we live in an era where a single person could create a magazine that looks exactly like a top-tier magazine, great writing, fantastic imagery, but is totally fake and worse, propaganda, disinformation, or whatever?
Look, you know, the technology that comes closest to mind when you think about generative AI is actually nuclear power. And I actually, my last term paper in Cambridge was about how AI and nuclear power are very similar. So I'm saying this with a big academic grounding here. And pretty much like nuclear power, you know, it has a very dark side, but it has an amazingly helpful side. It could help save global warming, you know, going forward. I mean, it's just good, and then obviously there are the bombs. Similarly, here, there's the dark side, and there's the... Now, I do fear, coming to your question, that this technology is moving so fast, that forget regulators or ethicists, even technologists are not able to keep up. Every morning there's something new, and at this point of time, I think, unless we slow it down, and now there are actually calls to slow it down, you know, I think many things are going to run amok. However, with any such new thing, a lot of industries get transformed. And if there's a possibility that an entire magazine can be produced in the right way with the right content, etc., by with a very less level of human supervision by a bot, I think all of us will just need to adjust to that new scenario and figure out what is the new business model for these kind of new kind of magazines. In fact, in the Kindle store, there are hundreds of books entirely ChatGPT generated, which have already been given for publishing. And sorry, just, yeah, I understand that. So I'll move on. Yeah, so I'll let him move.
So the fake news question is something which has been quite prevalent for a while regarding AI.
Do you have a favorite fake news magazine?
I don't have a favorite fake news magazine, but the way I think about it is that in media, we're in the business of trust. And so as fake news increases, as distrust increases, our relevance grows. So as long as we can stick to our ethics, as long as we can use the resources we have to debunk as much as possible, it allows more people to trust us, it allows audiences to gravitate towards a resource that they can trust, it allows us to build our businesses. So actually, I think it's great if there's a lot of fake news around because there's more for me to debunk. As a business model, what else do you need?
I think that's a great way to pause. I wish we had another hour, and I wish I could have done like a 1 hour to explain this. I will promise you though, I am the founder of the Svran Apeejay Journalism Foundation. Many of you are on the board. We are going to start doing free classes for journalists and reporters starting next month on how to start using a lot of these tools with live examples and just walking things through. Please join, it's free. I'm going to end with one last ethical thing to just saying AI and ethics. When we just covered the tip of the iceberg when it comes to journalism. I mean, we have someone who's done a master's here on it. You probably have given us a nice 3-hour in-depth lecture on the entire breakdown. But I'll give you a small example. A friend of mine created an app which layers ChatGPT over Tinder. And all it does is it interacts with all these girls, pretends to be him, and then whichever one says yes, he goes on a date with. And he says it's okay, they actually see me in person at the end of the day. Where's the ethics? It's just a numbers game. And I think more and more as we see AI come in, 12 hours ago, ChatGPT launched its app store. There are about 14 apps on it now. I expect there'll be 1,000, 2,000 apps in 3 months. Tomorrow morning. So we don't know where this is going, and we don't know what people are going to use this for. People will find incredibly crazy stuff. And that's why, in many ways, it is like nuclear technology, and in many ways, like the internet. And the internet told us credibility matters. And I think that's where all of you here can play a fantastic role. Thank you, and I'll end on that.